if you're anything like me, pitching a car and holding a nice slide is fun, virtually or not. And of course, BMW has been at the top of the current generation's choices for a drivable and a slidable car.
A good option would always be BMW's 1 and 2 series range of cars, as they, even from the lowest models, have been rear-wheel drive, ignoring their current lineup of front-wheel drive and four-wheel drive cars, of course.
What are they thinking?
And like any BMW tree, us car folk have our attention drawn to the sporty versions of their luxury range. Not always just the M cars, of course.
So that brings us on to this. The E82 135i. Woo. Launched in 2007. Of course, an inline 6 with a 6-speed manual transmission was celebrated and still is today. And a quick Google told me you can find these cars for under £10,000, which is a absolute bargain if you ask me.
However, the M division did get their hands on this car, of course, and so the M1 was born.
Well, kind of. As many of you may already know, let me introduce you to the 1M. The only proper M car to have its series designation before its M badge.
It's definitely a true M car, sharing suspension with the E92 M3 of the time, quad exhaust pipes, tuned engine, everything you might want from your M car, just missing a number from the bootlid.
People call the M2 a modern day version of this car, as it's a 2-door short wheelbase coupe. And to an extent I'd absolutely agree. Although they hadn't offered the 1M with a version that shared the engine from this generation's M3 like the M2 Comp has, which would have been awesome because this generation's M3 had that naturally aspirated V8 from the E92 generation.
That hasn't stopped others doing it, however, with the famous Hulk example of the 1M.
But back to the name. There was a good reason why the 1M was not called the M1. Whew. Before that, we have to go back and talk about something completely different to a 2-door accessible sports coupe.
Back in the 1970s, BMW teamed up with Lamborghini to create a race car that could compete in the GT series of racing. The rules dictated that for your car to qualify it had to have at least 400 road cars produced and sold to the public. And so, after some complications with Lamborghini,
let me introduce you to the M1, a mid-engined, double-badged supercar of the 70s. People say sitting in this driver's seat is reminiscent of the Lamborghinis of the same era, with the offset driving position where your pedals slightly off-centre to where the seat is, so you're sat at a diagonal. And with this famous wedge design. Assumptively due to these complications with Lamborghini, however, BMW sold these cars for an extraordinarily high price. If you ever watched a video on these, you would have heard about the £20,000 Ferraris at the time, and this costing £35,000. That's a huge ask for a small niche of people. However, despite this car is wonderful, and more than the sum of his parts. Trying to explain that your $500,000, yes, £500,000 BMW with only 270 horsepower and a 0-6 time slower than their E82 135i doesn't sound so impressive, but it really does feel like a race car for the road with all the benefits of a drivable BMW.
But why mention sliding at the beginning, the 1 and 2 series? Well, because I'm a young millennial who was born when there was already 3 generations of M3, so the idea of BMWs being a slidey car for the masses is normality. And so the M1 was a huge contrast of what my expectation of BMW's history entailed, and a beautiful example of 70s design and driving experience. It's unfortunate BMW doesn't dip their toes into the busy waters of supercars, as both Mercedes with their AMG GTR and Audi with the R8 have very good examples. However, we all know the story of the i8, so maybe it's for the best. So let's celebrate this failure? Maybe, but a wonderful example of defying my expectations of a brand and their history.
I will leave you now with the beautiful sounds of a race car inline-6 engine.